Hello, my dear students. Today we're going to discuss the poem Tithonus by Alfred Lord Tennyson. So, before we start with the poem, I want to give you a gist of what Tithonus is about. So, Tithonus is a legendary prince of Troy who fell in love with Eos, that is the goddess of dawn. And because he wanted to be with her forever, Tithonus begs her to make him immortal. And she also does that. But she forgets to make him immortally youthful. So, as time passes, Tithonus becomes old and haggard and he longs for the ordinary life of death which he had rejected earlier. So, the entire poem is about how he yearns to be a mortal again and get away from this empty existence that he is living now. So we'll go towards the line by line explanation of this poem. So let's go through the first few lines. The woods decay. The woods decay and fall. The vapors weep their burthen to the ground. Man comes and tills the field and lies beneath. And after many a summer dies the swan. So here Tithonus is giving a bird's eye view of the withering world. So he's saying that the woods, they rot and they fall and the vapors weep. So here the poet has used personification of vapors weeping. That means even the vapors, they can release their burden of water into the ground. Man is born, he farms the field, and then finally he is buried in the same ground. And after many a summers, means after a long time, even a swan dies. So swans were said to be astonishingly long lived. So there is an old legend which says swan is long lived. It's a symbol of beauty and grace. And even a swan that is known to be a symbol of beauty and grace is also not immune to death. They also die. So here, the circle of life he's showing is ticking away beneath his gaze, and that is saddening him. The poet gives a vision of burden, and even they are freed from it where the water falls from them. But however, Tithonus laments that on earth the circle of life takes place, which is life and death, but he cannot participate in it himself. Me, only cruel immortality. So here he says that he is cruelly immortal and it devours him. That means the immortality devours him and consumes him. I wither slowly in thy arms. So he's saying that unlike the woods, the swan, the people, or the vapors, he cannot decay and die. He is trapped by the curse of immortality. So here the word consumes. So he's saying immortality consumes him. Means it is a paradox because we are normally consumed by death. But here he's saying that he is consumed by immortality. So due to immortality, he's going through a slow consumption of withering away. So let's read. I wither slowly in thy arms. So he is talking about the goddess of dawn, who is Eos. So I am withering slowly. I am being wasted away in your arms, here at the quiet limit of the world. A white haired shadow roaming like a dream. So he is comparing himself to a white haired shadow which is roaming like a dream. So he's using simile here. So he's talking about his living as if he is like a ghost, an insubstantial existence that he is having, and he is floating through it like a dream. the ever silent spaces of the east. So he's wandering in those ever silent spaces because dawn is present in east. Far folded mists and gleaming halls of morn. In the last line, far folded mist means layers of mist piled up like folded cloth. So here the poet has used imagery and it symbolizes the ethereal divine realm of early morning where goddess of dawn resides, and it is a stark contrast to Tithonus, who is decaying and has a very tragic immortal state. So, in this stanza, what Tithonus wants to say is death devours everyone else, but immortality gnaws away at him without releasing him. So, here he wants to say that the divine gift of immortality is a curse for him, and it is definitely not a blessing compared to the lives of people on earth who have the blessing to die. Then he says, alas, for this grey shadow, once a man, so glorious in his beauty and thy choice. So here he's feeling pity for himself because he's saying this that this grey shadow, this ghostly shadow, was once a man who was so glorious in his beauty and thy choice. So he's also saying that gloriously he was lucky because he was chosen by her. So here Tithonus, he mourns while he recalls his past life of glory and the vitality of life. Who madest him thy chosen, that he seemed to his great heart none other than a god. I asked thee, give me immortality. So when he was chosen by the goddess of dawn, he puffed his heart and he felt like he is God himself. And that is why he asked her to give him immortality. So once he's saying that he was full of life and he was chosen by a goddess and it made him feel as superior to God. And this inflated sense of self and ego of his got boosted. And that is why he asked for immortality. So, this is a reflection of his past grandeur, which now he has lost. Then didst thou grant mine, asking with a smile, like wealthy men who care not how they give. So he's saying that when I asked for immortality, you did smile and you granted me my wish casually or as carelessly generous like rich people. But thy strong arms indignant worked their wills and beat me down and marred and wasted me. And thou, they could not end me, left me maimed to dwell in presence of immortal youth. So here the goddess gave the boon without even considering the consequences of the nature of the gift. So here it shows the unintended consequences and mistakes of wishing for more than what nature has gifted. So here what happened is, though he asked for immortality, the goddess of dawn carelessly gave away immortality, but she forgot to specify that he should be immortally youthful or young. So, what happened here? He's saying that the strong hours of hers, that is, time, is personified here. So, they're saying that time was offended because they could no longer force him towards a final death. It continued the aging process where they beat him down, they spoiled him, they withered him. And though they could not end him, they left him maimed, that is, disfigured and withered away, to live in the presence of his lover who had immortal youth. So, because of this immortality, he was going through a slow consumption of withering away and wasting away rather than a quick release. So, because Tithonus had worked against the process of nature and time, time rebelled against the prevailing law of nature. So, though he was immortal, he was actively destroyed by time. Immortal age beside immortal youth. So, here the author has beautifully used juxtaposition. So, what is juxtaposition? It's the comparison of two contrasting things that are placed close together. So, immortal age beside immortal youth. So, he is of immortal age because he is aging, and his lover is the immortal youth. And all I was in ashes. So, he is destroyed. So here Tithonus says that he is in ashes. That means he is completely destroyed or he's completely degraded. So his former self, that was a glorious man, is destroyed to a state of ashes. But it is also sad that he cannot achieve the state of being turned into ashes. That is, he cannot be a mortal and die and turn into ashes. But he is now destroyed to a state like ashes, but cannot be turned into ashes. Such a beautiful line, isn't it? Can thy love, thy beauty make amends? So he's saying, can your love, can your beauty make up for the suffering that I am going through? So he's saying, Venus, which is the morning star, the messenger of dawn, is coming close and it is shining in your eyes that are filled with tears. So he's asking her to take back the gift of immortality that was gifted to him as morning is approaching. So until now, he is questioning if her love and beauty will compensate for the torment that he is enduring. And the silver star, which is Venus and which guides Eos or Aurora, that is the goddess of dawn, and it is reflected in her tearful eyes. So here her eyes are also filled with tears. That means even she has regret and sadness for his fate. To hear me, let me go, take back thy gift. Why should a man desire in any way to vary from the kindly race of men, or pass beyond the goal of ordinance, where all should pause, as is most meet for all? So now even she has tears as she listens to his pleas. So he's saying that no man would desire to diverge so far from normal mankind, which is living the entire life and then being mortals and dying. So he's saying, why should one pause and hide from death? He now understands the circle of life and he would never wish for immortality. So now finally he has wisdom and he values the natural order of life. And now he's pondering, why would anyone want to deviate from the natural law set for life? So he's pleading that he's better off dead. So now he finally realizes of why any man would want to live other than to live as a mortal and trespass the reasonable limits of human life, because that is the most right and fitting for all. A soft air fans the cloud apart, there comes a glimpse of that dark world where I was born. Once more the old mysterious glimmer steals from thy pure brows, and from thy shoulders pure, and bosom beating with a heart renewed. So he's saying that a gentle breeze comes and the clouds move apart, and he gets a glimpse of the dark world, that is of earth where he was born, because dawn has not yet come, or it is not yet morning. So he get a glimpse of the world where he was born. He says that once again I see that old mysterious shimmer on you from your pure brows, and from thy shoulders that are also pure, and your heart which is beating with a fresh strength. So here he is describing what Aurora, or the goddess of dawn, looks like as she is cresting the horizon. So here he wants to say that he is growing old and haggard and withered, but she renews her beauty every single day. Thy cheeks begin to redden through the gloom. So your cheeks begin to blush and become red through the darkness. Thy sweet eyes brighten slowly close to mine. So that is pretty straightforward. Her sweet eyes, they also brighten and they are close to his. Here yet they blind the stars and the wild team, which love thee, yearning for thy yoke. Arise and shake the darkness from their loosened manes, and beat the twilight into flakes of fire. So he says, though it is not yet bright to put out the stars, the wild team of horses which love you, they rise up and they are eager to hitch them to her chariot, and they shake the darkness from their loosened manes, and they charge through the twilight into the flames of sunlight. So now the goddess of dawn is ready to bring out the morning. And the horses are yearning and ready to remove the darkness from their manes and bring in light. Lo, even thus thou growest beautiful in silence. Then before thine answer given, departest, and thy tears are on my cheek. So he's saying that whenever he makes the request to take back his immortality, she departs with tears in her eyes, and those tears fall on his cheek. So it also shows that there is shared sorrow. Even she feels sorrow for him. So here he acknowledges her beauty, and here he feels a sense of helplessness, and he also feels a sense of inevitability, that this is what it is. Why will thou ever scare me with thy tears, and make me tremble lest a saying learnt in days far off on that dark earth be true? The gods themselves cannot recall their gifts. So here he's saying, why are you frightening me with your tears and making me fear and believe the saying that I learned long ago on earth, that gods themselves cannot take back the gifts that they have already given. So he's saying, why are you making me petrified and make me believe that the gift of immortality that you gave me cannot be taken back? Ay me, with what another heart in days far off, and with what other eyes I used to watch. If I be he that watched the lucid outline forming round thee, saw the dim curls kindle into sunny rings. So here, this paragraph is showing the poignant longing of the past, contrasting with his former vitality with current despair. So he's saying, alas, how differently I felt when I had another heart, means when he was a mortal. In days far off, he's saying, how differently I saw you. And he's saying, I can't believe that the long lost self was even him. He says that when the shimmering light formed on her and he saw the curls of her hair in the light, changed with thy mystic change, and felt my blood glow with the glow that slowly crimsoned all. So he's saying that when the light came on the curls of his lover's hair, and when the light gave her outline, which was pressed against the light of the sun, he was the most alive then. He could feel his blood glow with hers as he lay with her. So he's saying that as I watched you make this magical transformation, I felt my blood also glowing with your glow, and slowly, because of the sunlight, the warmth flushed your body and your palace. And I lay down looking at all of this. Mouth, forehead, eyelids growing dewy warm, with kisses balmier than half open buds of April. So he's saying, as I lay down and watch you renew yourself and you filled with light, my mouth, my forehead, my eyelids all have become damp and warm, and your kisses are sweeter than newly half opened buds of April. So here he recalls being in sync with Eos's transformation at dawn and his body's reaction to her divine presence. So every kiss from Eos was warm and rejuvenating, and it is compared to the half opening buds of April. And could hear the lips that kissed, whispering I knew not what of wild and sweet, like that strange song I heard Apollo sing, while Ilion like a mist rose into towers. So he's saying that, and I could hear the lips that kissed me with mysterious, wild, sweet words of yours. And he's comparing these mysterious, wild, sweet words of hers to the strange song that he heard Apollo sing about Troy. So, a magical music was played by Apollo as he and Poseidon built the walls of Troy, and it is a feat of divine power and beauty. So, this imagery evokes the beauty and wonder of the past. So, he's saying, like, just as Apollo and Poseidon they built the walls of Troy, whose towers rose up as pale and ethereal as mist, he felt that her whisperings was also just like that. Yet hold me not forever in thine east. So he's saying, but please do not hold me forever in your eastern domain. How can my nature longer mix with thine? So he's saying, how can my nature, which is now of a deathless age, mix with your immortal youth? Coldly thy rosy shadows bathe me. Cold are all thy light, and cold my wrinkled feet. So he's saying that your warm, glowing shadows, they bathe me cold, and your lights feel cold to me on my wrinkled feet. So he's saying that now please don't hold me for longer, because how can our nature mix now? Because your light before, which used to make me feel warm, now feels cold on his wrinkled feet. upon thy glimmering thresholds, when the steam floats up from those dim fields above the homes of happy men that have the power to die. So he's saying that when your lights they fall on my wrinkled feet, which are on the glimmering doorways of your palace. And he's saying that this he experiences when the smoke or the steam floats up from those dim fields above the homes of happy men that have the power to die. So he's saying that now he feels profound disconnect between them when once the light of dawn, which was a source of warmth and joy for him, feels cold to him. He calls the men who are mortals on earth to be happy because they have the power to die. And grassy barrows of the happier dead. So he's saying the grassy tombs of the people who are dead are even luckier because they are already dead. And here Tithonus is yearning for death. Release me and restore me to the ground. So he's saying, please release me from this gift of yours and allow me to die and restore me to the ground where I am meant to be. Thou seest all things, thou will see my grave. So he's saying that you see everything and you will also see my grave. Thou will renew thy beauty morn by morn. So you are going to renew your beauty every morning. I, earth in earth, forget these empty courts and thee returning on thy silver wheels. So he's saying that please release me back into the earth and let I am dirt and let me get back into dirt so that I can forget this hollow palace and this empty existence. And let me forget the sight of you returning home in your silver wheeled chariot, but you will be able to see the return to his earth. So here he's desperately seeking for release and he wants to forget the empty days which he has been living. So this was the explanation of the poem, and now let's go and look at the various themes in this poem. So the first is death or mortality is a necessity. The poem reminds us about the dreadful pain of old age and how death is a boon or a benefit. It shows us that humanity wasn't meant to live forever and we are dust and meant to reunite with dust. Death is no terrible doom and not a terror to be afraid of, but a necessity, a natural relief, and even a merciful part of human life. Old age, with its frailty and loss, is far unkinder. So, this theme suggests that mortality is not a punishment, but a natural, merciful, and even desirable part of existence, offering an escape from the pain of endless decay. Isn't that right? Because at the end, he is just begging to be released from that curse of immortality. The next is grief and memory. So Eos's youth, Eos or Aurora, that is the goddess of dawn. Youth and beauty torments Tithonus. So once that was something that gave him happiness and warmth, now had tormented Tithonus, just as the unchanging memory of dead loved ones might torment those who survived them. He feels helpless when he sees his lover's beauty being renewed every single day, but he slowly withers away. he also starts reminiscing about his better days on earth and is envious or jealous of the mortals living on earth. So, here it talks about memory and also of grief. The next is the cruelty and inevitability of time. So, in this poem, time is personified as strong hours that worked their wills upon Tithonus, beating him down, marring him, and wasting him. So, even though he is immortal, time's destructive power still acts upon his body, causing endless decay. And though he tries to surpass mortality, time still holds on to him and he cannot escape the ravages of time. So, even though he worked against the process of nature and time, time still destroyed him. So now he was destroyed to a state of ash, but he could not achieve of being turned into ashes. The next is inflated ego. So Tithonus had a fatal flaw of ego. Just because he was chosen by the goddess of dawn, he asked her to make him immortal too. In doing so, he transgresses the law of nature that mortals must one day die. Thus, fatal arrogance destroyed him, and he is left begging for death. Therefore, this poem elicits that the wise mortals always accept their nature of mortality, that they will die one day rather than trying to escape it. The next is the state of helplessness. Throughout the poem, Tithonus is in the depth of misery and is in a wretched state as he wants a release from this state of torment that keeps gnawing at him without release. Though he desperately seeks release from this empty existence, there is nothing he can do to get out of the state of misery that he is in. So we can see a state of helplessness throughout the poem. So these were the various themes in the poem. I hope you liked watching this video. Please share it among your friends and make sure you study well. I am praying for each one of you. God bless.